Hi, everybody. My name is Cheryl Klein. I'm the editorial director at Lee & Low Books. And I'm here with Rajani LaRocca, the author of 7 Golden Rings, and it is its publication day. Yay! So congratulations, Rajani.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. What a wonderful day.
Yay. I am having a little bit of I've had a little bit of technical difficulties earlier this morning, everyone. So Jaleesa Corey, our excellent marketing associate, is also on the line just in case anything goes wrong here. But we are so glad to have you here. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat down below. And Rajani and I will hopefully get to them at the end of the conversation. So, so what kind of tea are you drinking today, Rajani?
So I am drinking chai. It is made, it's a chai blend that's made by a local spice company called Curio Spice Company. They call it Uncommon Chai. And it has my favorite ingredient, which is black pepper. So,
oh, wow.
Cardamom, ginger, black pepper. It's really good.
I am also drinking chai. It's just the Twinnings brand with honey and milk. So it's
yum. Yeah. Yum.
Now, how did 7 Golden Rings start for you? What was the initial inspiration?
So in my family, we have always been like math puzzle people. Like when I was a kid, like my parents would tell me riddles and I would tell some to them and we would try and figure it out together. And when I was in India, we would sometimes go to India for like the whole summer. My cousins and I would always be together, and uncles and aunts would sometimes tell us math riddles. So this is based, the central math puzzle is based on a logic puzzle that my uncle had told us when I was a kid, but then I made it a little bit more complicated. And then, of course, and then I tried to imagine a character that would need to solve this puzzle in order to make something happen, something so that the stakes were there, that something important was going to happen if he solved it.
Right. Yeah. And I just realized that, of course, we were going to read a little bit of the book first, and that just slipped my mind. So let's do that so people know what we're talking about. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So. And if you'd like to do the honors.
Sure. 7 Golden Rings, a tale of music and math. Long ago, there lived a kind Raja who ruled over vast lands. He loved music and gathered the finest players and singers to perform in his court. But the Raja had no interest in planning or calculating and did not manage his kingdom's food stores and accounts. And so his people suffered. Bhagat and his mother lived in a dusty village in the far corner of the Raja's kingdom. Their days were filled with toil and hunger, but they planned and saved to make their meager means stretch further. And Bhagat, who loved to sing, filled their nights with song. One day, Bhagat saw something that gave him hope. For 1 week only, the Raja calls on musicians to audition for the royal troupe. Amma, we'll soon starve. I must seek our fortune and win a place with the Raja. You are still young, said Bhagat's mother, and only the most skilled musicians will be chosen for the Raja's troupe. The journey will be long, and what will happen if you fail? But Bhagat would not change his mind. This is our only chance. I must win the Raja's favor with my singing. Eventually, Bhagat's mother relented. She gave him 1 rupee, the last they had left, and a chain of 7 tiny golden rings. This is what remains of my wedding necklace. I have sold it ring by ring so we could eat. Use it to change our fortune. Remember, Bhagat, you are a fine singer, but you are an even finer thinker. Consider all you have to offer the Raja. And she gave Bhagat her blessing. Bhagat sang as he walked all day. In his head, he heard a rhythm of whole notes, tan, and half notes, da, da, and quarter notes. Da, ga, da, ga. So many ways to divide a whole. As long as he had music, Bhagat never felt alone. He reached the city and found a small inn. 10 rupees a night, including dinner, said the innkeeper. But Bhagat only had 1 rupee. Sir, may I work for my stay? I'm sorry, no. Bhagat revealed the 7 golden rings. They glimmered in the twilight. 7 rings for 7 nights. Hand them over, said the innkeeper's wife. But Bhagat didn't know how many nights he would remain in the city. If the Raja called him the next day, he would have spent all 7 rings when he only needed 1. Madam, may I pay when I leave and only for the days I stayed? You must pay for each night in advance, 1 ring per night. Divide them if you must, she said, flinging her sari over her shoulder. There is a goldsmith nearby, whispered the innkeeper. I can separate them all for 5 rupees, said the goldsmith. But I only have 1. 1 rupee, 1 link broken. Bhagat thought and thought. If he broke the first link, he would have a single ring and a chain of 6. That would work for 1 night, but what would he do if the Raja didn't call him the next day? He would need to give up the rest of the necklace when perhaps only 1 more ring would do. Maybe he should break the second link. With some wiggling, he could free it from the first, and then he would have 2 single rings and a chain of 5. But if he needed to stay more than 2 nights, he would have to give the innkeeper all the remaining rings. Bhagat was determined not to waste a single precious ring of his mother's wedding necklace. How could he pay the innkeeper 1 ring each night if he couldn't separate them all? Bhagat wandered the city. Remember, Bhagat, you are a thinker. He heard the rhythm in his head. Tan, ta, 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 ka, ta, ka. So many ways to divide a whole. Suddenly, he knew what to do.
And we are going to leave you there, readers. If you want to find out, you've got to get the book. So what happens next? Yeah. So this started out as a math problem that somebody had set to you, like in your own family, and then you sort of fleshed it out with character, and that's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you know what brought specifically the music part into it, or was this something that happened in revisions, or what happened?
So actually, I think that it was pretty early on in the revision process that I was like, how does a kid make a leap from hearing, like figuring out, like getting this math puzzle and figuring out how to approach it? And I was like, oh, so my son is actually a very musical and mathematically oriented person, and he was that way from the very beginning of his life. So I was like, oh yeah, there are a lot of links between music and math. So in fact, pretty early on, I was like, there's an analogy to be made about how you break up a measure and how you can break up these rings in a way that solves your problem.
Right. Oh, and you said in a blog post that you went through like 70 revisions on this book?
Yes.
So how did it change? Like, what were some of the things that came and went? Like, or how did you know what you were looking for? I guess might be your question.
So what I will say is that this is one of the first picture book texts that I ever wrote. And I did not go to school to write picture books. I had no idea how to write one. So this was one of the stories that taught me how to write picture books. So I read a lot of picture books and I had this idea, and so the central problem was always the same. It was that this boy needs to solve this problem in order to succeed and help his family kind of survive. So I was like, okay, so I know that. And then I knew the solution to the math problem. That at least I knew. But the rest of it, so, as you know, it can be a little bit complex, the solution to this problem. So I was like, that's a lot of words. I was like, how am I supposed to pare this down and get only the essential words that this story needs so that it's not way too long. At one point I was like, he had a sister. At one point he had there were more members of his family. And then I was like, no. We need to just get it down, knock it down to the kind of the bare bones of what this means to him. And then the other thing I really struggled with was the ending, because I really felt, so I knew he was going to succeed, but I was like, well, how do these two things, he wants to succeed in music, but he also needs to save his family. And how do those two things go together? And I feel like the ending we came up with is like the right ending for this story. It's slightly surprising, but also good.
Yeah. It's satisfying in exactly the right way. And it's set up so nicely from the beginning too, on the material you're in.
Oh.
One of the things I was thinking as you were reading was like, oh, there's so many nice little characterizations and just in the writing, like where the goldsmith whispers, or I'm sorry, the innkeeper whispers, there's a goldsmith nearby. And that tells you everything you need to know about his relationship with his wife, who flings the sari over her shoulder. And that tells you what sort of person she is. And
yes, yeah. And that line with the flinging of the sari over her shoulder is from the beginning. It was there from the beginning. I was like, that lady, I know who that lady is. She is a skeptic.
Right. When I brought this manuscript to Acquisitions, one of my fellow editors had said that she had seen it. I think you submitted it maybe to our New Voices picture book contest. Yeah. And she said she hadn't been able to figure out like how to make the math dramatic, basically, like in a visual picture book way. Was that something you thought about a lot, or how did you try to deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, when the part comes where he's actually solving the puzzle, I tried to use as few words as possible, and then also make it clear that I think the pictures could do a lot more than the words could in explaining what is happening. And I think this all goes to show, and that's exactly what happened it happens in the final book. I think it all goes to show that it takes the right editor to recognize something and be like, oh yeah, I know how to do that. And I was just like, oh, that's exactly it. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I knew it could be challenging for some people to visualize this because the math is sophisticated, but it doesn't, but it's also kind of fun, and it's not that complicated once you kind of get the pictures to go with it.
Right. And I have always felt like, as an editor, and I feel this strongly, like, especially when I'm editing novels, is that thinking is a form of action, you know, because that's like how a character moves forward if you can get inside their head. And it's easier to do when they're doing novels, because then you're used to being in their head. But with a picture book, like, you just have to provide like outside action that can go on while they're thinking, basically, and sort of make the thinking visual. And and I think Archana did such a great job with that, like both of that scene where she's holding out the rings so you could see how he's thinking through the rings, and then the scene where you see him walking, like I those are my two favorite scenes, I think, is the scenes where he's walking to the city and then walking through the city, like just the layers of that.
Absolutely. And it's such a human like thing where you've got something on your mind, so you just kind of walk and then your mind figures it out as you go along. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And then she found that we didn't show it, but there's a later spread where she really shows all the counting and how things are changing over time, and you can see the innkeeper's wife there as she's reacting to it, and so you can see her thinking like, this kid is kind of smart, you know?
Yes, I the innkeeper's wife's expressions in this story are just one of my favorite aspects of this whole story. And it's one thing to just say in an illustration note, oh, you know, she's just observing but not commenting, but like really paying attention. And then to see the actual page with her expression changing, I love it.
Yeah. So you and I ended up at a writers' conference together the weekend after I made the offer. Do you want to tell that story? Like, how did that come together?
Yes, so we were both going to be at this writers' conference, and the attendees showed up the day before, and I think you were coming the next day. And literally, and it's like way out there in Minnesota, like almost at the Canadian border. And I had just had pulled up to the place. I was taking a ride with friends, and my agent called me, and he told me that you had made an offer on this book. And I was like, wait a minute, what? And I was like, she's going to be here tomorrow. And he couldn't believe it. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, well, I know she's going to be here, but she doesn't know I'm going to be here. So it's going to be like, we'll see what happens. But it was wonderful. And you came in that room and you were like, oh, Rajani, hey, how are you? I've got an idea for Illustrator. It was amazing.
I think I whipped out my laptop and I was like, how about this person? And you were like, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, and so Archana, I think at that point had done one picture book in the US, right?
She'd done the Diwali board book and maybe like
Yeah.
one other board book.
Like a Rapunzel or something like that.
Yeah.
And then she
Yeah.
had other art on her website. And what was really amazing to me was the range of her artwork, right? So
Lots
she
of
could do
different
like,
atmospheres.
yeah, she could do like very like cartoony fun illustrations, and then she could also do like really lyrical, like much more kind of serious appearing. It was just incredible. So
Yeah.
I was like, and I don't know if I told you this, she lives in the same city in India where my entire family lives.
Bangalore, right?
Yes.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
So we had a lot in common. It's been, and her artwork in this book is just so incredible.
I feel 100% the same way. Like I was telling somebody earlier, like when I first got to Lee and Low, I didn't have any projects, for like a month, basically. So I spent most of my time in my office, like searching for cool illustrators who I would want to work with and just making lists. And she was just at the top of that list. And so when I received your manuscript, I was like, this is an awesome manuscript that works really well for Lee and Low because it's about math and culture and all these great things. And it's a great story. And I can work with this awesome illustrator. And that's like I don't know if it's the trifecta, the lottery ticket, whatever the jackpot really all around for an editor is if you can hit all those things at once. So
yeah,
for writers out there, if you can figure out how to help an editor hit that jackpot, that is when you will get offers on your book, basically. Yeah, lots of the time. Yeah.
Oh, it's just amazing. Yeah. And I think what was really cool about the way the process worked is that Archana, because she lives in India, had knowledge of the kind of cultural backdrop to the story, so that like I didn't have to explain any of this stuff. Like she was just like, oh yeah, 15th century India, no problem. And then she made a lot of touches, like the clothing of the poor people in the story are very different compared to the rich people, like shoes or no shoes. That's wears a little amulet, and he has like a little necklace that is very typical of that time period. It's really lovely. And then her use of color is just spectacular.
I agree. Yeah. It's so rich and warm and just really beautiful. And how she brings in all the math elements and also the musical elements, but subtly. She did such a great job.
She really did.
Yeah. Working from a great text.
Thank you.
So you've been very active with a lot of promotional stuff. Like you have a book launch planned later today. And what have you found has been what's your attitude toward promotion, first of all? And then what have been like your favorite or most successful promotional activities that you've done?
So the weird thing is that I didn't think I would like promotion, but I actually enjoy it because for me, it's all about celebrating stories, right?
Yeah.
And so, part of it is that I was lucky enough to pre-pandemic, like meet a lot of people. I've been writing for a while, so I know a lot of people, and there's a great community here in New England. So, you feel like you're always among friends, and then you read other people's books and they're awesome and you need to talk about them. So that's fun. And then when it comes time for your own book, like it's just like happiness. So I just feel like, look, and the visuals are just, stunning, right? With the cover and with inside spreads, like it's just so much fun to show off this kind of beautiful art. So for me, I just stick to doing what I enjoy, which is, I like talking about books. So that's what I do. And if I don't like something, I don't really do that much, I don't do it. So that's it.
Well, that is a fantastic attitude, because I think you're just like, I've got a beautiful book, I'm sharing it. That's a good, I mean, I'm a writer too, and I sometimes struggle to do promotion or just be like, oh yeah, I need to do that thing, but that enthusiasm is just really lovely. So,
And then
So now,
I often schedule a lot of things. So if I have time, I'll just schedule tweets or whatever it is, so then I don't have to do it in real time and get stressed out in real time.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, like, you are a doctor, you are a writer, you are doing all this promotional stuff. Like, how do you manage it all? Like, you're a mom also, you bake.
Yes, there's a lot of pandemic baking going on. What I would say is that, okay, so the simple answer is that when you're obsessed with something, you find time for it, right? Like when you really love
Right.
to do something, you will always make time for that. But the other answer is that as a woman who is a mom who also works, like I've gotten used to juggling. Like I got used to juggling a long time ago. Like when I was first writing and my kids were in school, I would be like parked in their parking lot, picking them up from school, like writing on my phone, or I would be at a piano lesson and I would just bring my laptop and they'd be in there playing whatever and I'd be, typing away. So I would just find time whenever I had time. And I'm not one of those people that has to do something like that has to do things at a certain time each day. So whatever time I have, I spend, writing. And I'm also a little bit type A like that. Like if I set a goal, I kind of want to achieve the goal. So if I say I'm going to finish this draft by this day, I kind of like make myself do that. So yeah. And
That's good.
yeah, and then and medicine like is always different. Like it varies day to day, but I have like set hours when I'm in the office, and then I really try and get my work done when I'm in the office, and then come home and not have to worry too much about it.
Right. Yeah, that's which is a little unlike writing or editing, I will say, where you can just do it all the time, anywhere, more or less.
Yeah,
it doesn't stop. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Even when you think it's done, you're like, oh no, it's not done, is it?
Right. So are you making any candy for Halloween or anything like that, or special treats?
No, not right. Like we live on the side of the street that's like like it has no sidewalk, and we live on a pretty busy street, so we almost get like no trick-or-treaters anyway.
Yeah.
And this year I don't even know. I have no idea what's going on. But
Right.
but yeah, I want to bake some fun stuff. I'm gonna like bake some stuff just for us. And my children are coming home from college in a few weeks, so I'm like, ooh, I've got to work on stuff to welcome them home. So that'll be good.
I think we have a question here, like, what advice would you give to new writers who'd like to write a picture book?
Oh, okay. So my advice would be read a lot of picture books, like a lot of them, and modern ones, right? Because I think the picture books that were out when my children were little were very different in their kind of style from the ones that we have today. So I would say read widely, and then I would say just try writing them, and then find really good critique partners. I mean, when you have critique partners that read like 70 versions of the same story and still like you and still like those are good critique partners, I would say. So
Right.
yeah, and then also don't be afraid, like don't worry about taking time. Like there would be, when I wrote all those versions, like there would be times when I would leave this alone for 6 months, and then I would like write other stuff, and then I would come back to it and I would see it with new eyes.
That's all great advice. I mean, I think Linda Sue Park says you need to read something like 500 books in your chosen genre before you start writing, or before or while you are writing. And that's really good, really true. And yeah, the picture books of like the early 2000s, I think are even like wordier now than the ones we have now quite often. And I feel like we're in a golden age, kind of. There's so many great picture books being produced right now. And I think that's been true. I think we're always kind of in a golden age because there's so many talented people at every time. But right now, especially, it feels like there's so many more interesting, and like people have really opened up to more diverse art styles, and of course more diverse authors and subject matter and everything like that. And so it's amazing all the stuff that's out there now.
Yeah, and I feel like picture books are this incredible combination of simple and sophisticated, because you can express really complicated concepts in a picture book.
Yeah.
And you can use elevated language because you know that a parent is reading to a child. I love it. It really is fun.
I mean, I think that's one of the things I love about this book, honestly, is that you can read it and think like, oh, I don't think about math when I'm reading it. Like, I think about like, oh, that's an interesting problem to solve. And then you
Yes.
read about the binary numbers and the back matter, and it's like, oh, there's this whole other level that was there the whole time. And yeah.
And that came later, Cheryl. I wrote this story and it was only like a couple of years afterwards that I was like, there's a way to link this to a math concept that actually is important. So yeah, that didn't come until much later.
That's so interesting. Yeah. Do you have any other favorite picture books you'd like to shout out that are coming out recently, or both either your own books or somebody else's books?
Oh yeah. So if we're in the math mode, there's a book called Dozens of Donuts by Carrie Finnison that is absolutely adorable. It's about a bear that is like getting ready to hibernate, and she makes herself a dozen donuts, but then ding dong, somebody comes to her door and then she has to split the donuts, and then more and more little woodland creatures come to her door and they're all her friends. So she keeps making more donuts and they divide them among the friends. So it's all the ways to divide 12. And then of course she gets very frustrated because she's hungry and she's a bear.
Right.
But I love that book so much. I love it so much. It's so much fun.
Does that mean it goes in a I want my hat back direction, or does she finally get the donuts?
She does get the donuts. It doesn't go dark. It's very sweet. It's about sharing and friendship and also donuts, which is wonderful. Yes. Yeah. There's a beautiful book called The Ocean Calls about Korean divers. They're like, it's a little girl and her grandmother who is a diver.
I've seen that book. Yeah.
And the art is just absolutely incredible in that book too. But there are like millions of books that I could talk about. But there are just so many wonderful books that I don't even have children who read picture books anymore, and I'm constantly buying them. So it's a problem.
Yeah. I have a 1-year-old now, and so my book buying is when I buy picture books, it's divided into like books I want to keep on my shelves as like art books or reference books, and then books that I am willing to let him have and possibly destroy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
the chewing kind of books. Exactly.
Right. But the other day I brought home this book. I'm not going to remember the title off the top of my head, but it's a board book and it has these cool pages that you can unfold. So it looks like there's, say, a donut on the page, and then you pull it out and it's like two cat ears or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And so it goes from one thing to another. I found it at McNally Jackson, and I was pulling the pages out, and he literally like laughed with delight every time I did this. Like, and it was just the sweetest, cutest thing that like, just to see him discovering a book in that way and falling in love and be so excited about it. So.
Yeah. There were ones that my kids would like, as soon as you finish it, they'd be like, again, and you're like, okay, that's a winner. So sweet. Oh.
Well, it has been lovely to chat with you here today, and thank you so much to all of our attendees for showing up and sharing our chai chat. This is our last Lee and Low Tea Time Talk of the year, but we will be back in 2021, which will hopefully be a good year all around for all of us.
Yes. Has to be.
Yes. So everybody remember to vote. And thank you again, Rajani. And please.
Cheryl, thank you. This was so much fun.
Yay. All right.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.